All right, calling this meeting to order. Proof of notification is properly posted. All right, we have a 19-point agenda. I believe that is the most recent. It was amended a couple times, but 19-point is the correct one, right, Mike? It is, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
I'm asking to delete number 6. I've talked to the people who talked to me, and I don't believe that there is a discussion that needs to be made.
Okay.
Unless anybody else.
Okay, so we can eliminate item number 6. Is that okay with you, Administrator Bindle? Okay. All right. So that means we have an 18-point agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that correction.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the correction.
Motion by Fleming,
I'll-
second by Carol. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor Turk is on.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to item number 4, approval of November 28, 2022 minutes. Any questions or comments? Always entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 28th, 2022 minutes.
Motion by Fleming, second by
I'll second.
Carol. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, zoning petitions, item number 5, Oliver rezone. Hold on, give me 1 second to get back into. And that additional information you sent us was for the first one or the second one? The first one, right?
Since Friday,
Yeah, the email?
that's for this one right here.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so we'll be going back and forth between the two, I guess. I'm assuming that you are going to elaborate on.
Let's start off on this petition. It's by Audrey Oliver. Currently, there is a 0.5 acre parcel. It's was described as 160 by 135. And recently, they recorded a document that is 2.01 acres. Looking into the description more, it appears that some of the land that was described in that description is not owned by the quitclaim deed that was recorded on October by Mr. Don Stanky. There's some land that's owned by actually Mr. Grimm that's involved in it. And what probably needs to be done is it needs to be cleared up before we vote on rezoning on it, because I'm assuming the description needs to be changed. And then there's also part of the new lots that does not include the old lot that was described.
Do you have the capability of putting this on the screen? Can you do that? So this would be item number, I think it's labeled correctly as 5A. Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, you're wanting to, are the parties here? So can you guys want to describe one of them mics? Steve, will you help? Mr. Carroll, will you help? Just turn a mic on. So who's who, if you could please? Can you talk into the mic so our people online can hear?
I'm Don Stanky.
And you,
Closer.
Good, Don.
Real close. Huh?
yeah, that way he can hear you too.
I'm not used to this audio visual.
Yeah, it takes getting used to.
Yeah. She has land described, but the original lot was just put there by my ex-father-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law, her deceased husband. And through the years with family stuff, the septic system ended up in my pasture.
Did you know that it was in your pasture?
Would have to ask my ex-wife and deceased brother-in-law
Oh,
how
boy.
we came to that agreement.
Okay.
And it didn't really matter at the time because of, the cows were gone because we'd sold the cows, and things just sort of happened in family. And I don't know how it got put in up there, but it did. And that was what, 20+ years ago?
So the septic has been on this
Yeah.
questionable parcel of land for a
So
long
that
time.
was how this all got started, where, what, 15 years ago, her husband and I put out what would be a nice change in their lot lines to make it a reasonable property and include everything that's.
To make it
supposed to-
actually reflect what is, where the septic is
Yeah,
in
like
the same
we
land
have
with
to-
the house and
yeah.
everything else. Okay,
And we just went off the fences that were there. And apparently the fences were put in before Robert and I were either one of us there.
I'm Robert Grimm. On
so
the-
you actually own the property in question?
On the property that's in question, the triangle there.
The little triangle, okay.
And when I bought that property, I was told by the previous owner that they just ran a fence through between them because the cows were getting out from both sides onto their other property. And they did not try to follow the description line. They
Okay,
just put a fence in. So following that, that fence doesn't follow, it goes across. And to change that, you'd have to make a different description, every piece of property it cuts through. So it's never been done, of course, but it really should go back to original description. And it was there when I was first there, that corner and stake was there on the old fence. The cow fence is in on my side.
okay.
So they just somehow, somebody pulled the surveyor markers out and took the corner of the old fence and the old fence down.
Okay. Okay.
That's correct.
That's your property. So the well is right on the line?
The original lot was half an acre,
Mhm.
1/2 acre.
So,
So I take it what you're saying is that we need to straighten out who owns what before we can rezone that parcel?
Correct.
correct, yeah. Because we can't rezone if you don't own.
The document that was
Probably need to do a quit claim for me for this up here. Is that the way that would work? For that little, well, either that or we can figure out a deal. Audrey already has legal access. That's on, there's permanent easement on her description. If she goes to sell the property, imagine that easement goes with the property because it's on the property description. But that's a separate issue, not what we're.
Right,
talking
so
about today.
I mean, it sounds to me like
My suggestion would be to postpone action on this
until,
hearing until it's been cleared up on what needs to be done, because like I said, this description here might alter. So you don't want to rezone anything that's,
We're gonna have to probably figure out what to do with that triangle that
you'll have
My
to
neighbor here owns.
legally, yeah, you'll have to legally either purchase it if that's something you're agreeable to, or you're going to have to figure out.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
How would that affect Robert's farmland preservation?
Oh, yeah.
It would reduce his acreage, correct, Kathy?
If you,
Basically what's ever on the tax bill. So.
So if you
then when the tax bill, if the tax bill, when the tax bill changes, then we'll have to update your certificate of compliance.
So you would
Is-
lose that acreage.
is that a big deal or?
No, we just have to adjust the parcel number things on the back. The acres associated with the parcel.
And it's pretty tiny little. It's what?
$7.50 an acre.
And that's,
An acre.
You got to pay back taxes or
No.
something. Wait,
Violation
For-
in the future.
for her, I would be losing it.
Changed in the past.
That,
So it was-
that's why I was suggesting to make it legal access from my petition driveway to her property. That would add property to hers to make it over 2 acres.
How did the quit thing go through without this being noted? Who does that? The property lister? Who did that for him? Us?
That's my question. You said there was selling here. How did you get title if it wasn't your to sell? I don't understand that.
well, when we laid out the lot lines for what we were gonna try and transfer, we were on our farm inside the fence lines, but didn't realize the fence wasn't exactly, we knew the fence wasn't exactly right. No, he didn't. He took the
Okay,
fence
so-
above his
so-
property out, which is between me and the pasture.
So this should be figured out out of a meeting, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna ask that we postpone this and that all the parties involved, you need to legally get access, or legally buy that property, or figure out what you're doing with your neighbor. And then we can talk about rezoning it to meet and get everything in order.
Yep,
Okay,
sounds good.
okay,
Thank you.
yep. All right, so that brings us to and I don't want to say it wrong, Neagle rezone. Thank you.
Yeah, Eagles.
Is that? All right, do you want to go ahead and
Here?
give us
Yeah,
To explain, this one is going to be pretty, think of doing the opposite. We're going from ag residential back to ag forestry. This was rezoned previously to be ag residential, but Mr. Nigel purchased the land and wants to rezone it back to ag forestry. He owns the land all around there. It's
Mhm.
ag forestry, so he just wants to bring it all to,
and there's no longer any residents, everything it burned. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this one? Seems pretty straightforward.
A motion to approve.
Motion by Gentis, and a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Fleming. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. You're approved. Thank you. All right. So item number 6, we struck from the agenda. So that brings us to item number 7, short-term rentals. So I went back through and looked at kind of all of the information we had at our August meeting. And I think what I wanted to talk about today was, what do we think we want to do? Are we for sure wanting to create an ordinance? Are we wanting to do something less than an ordinance? We could do a resolution that has some kind of criteria. I mean, there's other ways we can go, but do we really think that an ordinance is what we want? And if so, I can start, I mean, we've already got a lot of information about what other places have done. That's in our folder already. But I guess what I'd like everyone to do then for next time is to come prepared with, of all of the suggestions we've heard, kind of a list of what you think absolutely has to be in it, what are some things you think could be in it, and what are some things that absolutely should not be in it, I think is really what we need to consider, if that's what. So I guess I'd like to hear from you guys right now to know, are you thinking we would like to have an ordinance on the books that, that really makes it clear for all involved what the requirements are? Or do we want to do something that's a little more flexible? I don't know. I need you to tell me how you want to proceed.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
my impression is it's a little bit wild in the west right now, so maybe we do need to have an ordinance and have flexibility in the ordinance, but the impression I got is that we don't even know for sure what all is happening, and so part of that would be fact gathering and then requirement to let the county know.
Right. So if we were to create an ordinance, which presumably, actually, I should back up. Have we already created language that requires a CUP in order for anyone to have a short-term rental in the county?
Everything's by conditional use, so it's just approving the conditional use. One of the things you can probably do is if you want to have conditions that you want to check off on the conditional uses, if you want to define it more, say like, I think I read one county has it that you can rent up to 180 days.
Right. There's a lot of different options out there.
There's a lot of
My
different
question is, when we changed our language in last summer, whenever that was, do we now require short-term rentals to have a CUP
Yes,
in any township,
zone, county.
zone, county, township?
that's
So that would not include the two that do their own zoning, which is Ithaca and
Rockbridge.
Rockbridge, and it would not include the city of Richland Center, probably the village of Viola, that's part in Richland County. But everything else that,
Village alone, I mean, it won't do anything with the villages or cities or anything like that.
right, so just the county zone townships is essentially what we're talking about here.
Right, so it's Sylvan and Bloom, since they have no zoning, you have no.
Okay. So,
control.
so Mr. Hobson, so we've already instigated we've already begun the requirement that all STRs have to have a CUP if they're in a county zone township, which means that the $500 is already set because that's just the price that we've set for a CUP, correct?
Correct.
So do you want to talk into a microphone? And that's a one-time fee.
If that's the way you want to set, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's currently one time.
Yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about was that fee. And it's currently $500. There was talk last time in August that it sounded like 90% of the vacation rentals probably haven't paid it.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
correct.
so there was maybe like an enforcement issue there. And, but my thinking was on the cost itself, in asking around and like what other neighboring townships have. I at least found out that Rockbridge is $250 for that same amount. The $500 just seemed high, I guess, to me. In looking at your fees, I noted that, and conditional use permit for vacation rental, short-term rental, $500. If you look at land use, it says camping and resorts is $40 for a land use permit. For camping and resorts is 40. So I don't know if that was set. So it just seems low and nice when if you're thinking about tourism is a good thing for the county and you want to support things like that. They set it at 40. I feel like this is kind of like the same line as like these short-term rentals. They bring tourism here, and if you want to support them, and no one's complying right now, maybe a smaller fee will help, and at least will help the people that need to come on board to pay a smaller, reduced fee. that to think about something less than 500, if, you know, especially if you, maybe you guys might do an ordinance anyway, maybe you can pass them at the same time or something like that. But that's my thinking is, if it's 40 for the land use for camping and resorts, you know, maybe you could do something less for short-term
Let
rentals.
me ask him a question. So for the camping and the resorts, the $40 fee is, do they also have to have a conditional use permit? So there is the additional,
I've never issued one of those permits.
oh, we've
In
never,
the 11 years I've been here.
never had a camping or
Can
a,
I ask a question?
that is a good question though. Why is it like that? And why is it different? So bizarre.
Yeah. We have the word, do we have a definition of resort?
Yeah.
I know, exactly.
This
I
is
think
stuff
we
that's
need-
probably been there since the
We
1980s.
need to put that on a future agenda item to really just kind of go through and define what, because that seems strange that
I
it,
think those are definitely out of sync here.
Right, right.
okay.
Actually, I think some of those fees are not even approved by ordinance. That's why they're not actually higher. We don't know where they came from. Because
So
we look in
we're
the zoning ordinance.
Through and this process we were doing of, and I can't think of the word right now, but what they're doing in the clerk's office of going through all the ordinances, codifying, that's the word. Do we think that we'll be able to figure that out once they've got them all? I think that was part of the problem, part of why we were doing the codification was to try to figure out what ordinances are out there, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice we're there. So hopefully we will be able to determine what's going on. But so I think that that's part of what we'll have in our discussion is when we talk about fees, what, and we've always had the concern, Mike has brought the concern several times of how do we enforce and how are we, so we do need to think carefully about how we're going to do that. And, okay, so for next time, so what I'm hearing is we think we really should, it is the Wild
Yeah.
West out there and we should,
I
yes.
don't know whether it should be an ordinance, but when they come for the CUP, there should be some sort of criteria, as we call the good neighbor criteria, and whether we need to reduce the amount, whatever, but also I'm very much in favor that we make sure that they are aligned with the state and having, you know, the
That they've
state-
gotten their DAT cap
they
permit
got
as
the
well.
DAT cap, and I think that we need to start to, and I think that's really important for the safety of people staying there. More than maybe some of the good neighbor thing, you know, and so.
Yeah, one of the
we need
notes.
To get that out there in the word so that people understand that they're out of compliance with not only the county, but the state.
So one of the notes I read from our meeting was that we were interested to know how many STRs DAT cap thinks we have in Richland County.
Yeah.
So I will put that on my list of things.
This is lower.
Yeah.
If not lower.
Right.
Honestly, I bet it's lower.
Right.
And I made the point last time that if you're gonna go down that road and require people to have DAT cap approval first, I hope that means that you can limit a whole bunch of your ordinances because that kind of it has its own set of rules and circumstances. So maybe you can ignore the whole ordinance thing, which might be cumbersome and some more simple if you could just focus on what they're enforcing.
Making sure that they're
Yes.
just at least
Yes.
at the very minimum up to the state standards for.
I think it's going to be a chicken and egg type of thing because if they do get the permit from the state, are you going to guarantee them that they will get the approval from the county? Because, I mean, part of the condition could be is that they do get approval within 6 months or else it's
Right.
void, but that's one of the
Okay.
things I've heard in the past was if you get state approval, that means you're going to guarantee.
That we need to,
Yeah.
like, we're like obligated to give them county approval. I don't think that that's true anymore. I think that there's a lot of counties that have been pushing back a little bit on that, saying, well, that's fine that you have state approval, but we have a few more requirements because we actually live here. And this is what we
You can have
care about.
Conditions, but just not to turn around and say, sorry, you got your state, but we're denying it.
Right. I mean, presumably,
The smaller that has more, like the township has more power and we have more state.
supposedly that's how
Yeah.
it's supposed to go, but local control, yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to keep this on the agenda and I think we'll keep chipping away at it. And I'll keep bringing information. She has given me, if there's anyone else, I do think, like I said, I think you need to come prepared with things that you think are critical to be included in an ordinance and concerns. Because I agree with, I mean, I think we want to be tourism friendly. We want to have STRs in this county, but there also needs to be some kind of common sense things. I think we can walk that line pretty well without making it onerous to the owners, but still making it
And
safer.
Side, but I just read that VRB, a lot of these are going down in occupancy because they're not offering some of the safety and the things that hotels are, what I mean? So we got to make sure that they are offering good
Good
things.
quality
Yeah.
stays is really, I think, the goal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your input. We appreciate it.
I think Aaron was here also for the night sky, so if you want to go
Okay.
through that real quick.
Yep.
He's here.
Yeah. So several months ago, we had a neighbor conflict that was about a neighbor's light shining on a property that was not his. And it brought up the discussion about just, what is night pollution? What is light pollution? And are there things that we, in the land use realm, is there things that we could be doing to encourage landowners to be more light pollution aware? So I guess, Steve, I was going to kind of punt this one to you. I was hoping that what you could do is maybe we could bring back, and I don't remember his name.
Scott.
There you go. Thank you. And then if you have time to do any kind of research about if there's other municipalities who have dabbled in whether it be ordinances or simply education. I think education is really where I'd like to start the focus, is just educating the public on, I was just driving the other night down our road, and it's like we all have this, your classic farm yard light, and it's not shielded. It's, it sends light a very far, long distance. And so part of it, maybe we do an education piece, but also I think there are things that we can be encouraging when people are building and stuff, is really, maybe it is all education. Maybe when they're building, we encourage the use of shielded lights or whatever. So,
Madam Chair,
yep.
it might be a good opportunity to stop and educate ourselves on the building codes in the county too.
Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Just saying.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know. Well, let's see where it goes. Yeah. I mean, we can start, because certainly the building inspector could talk about codes and stuff.
Anyway, I'll take that on.
Okay.
So I just want to say that years ago, our area in here, they called it the donut hole. They touted this area as the dark skies and how it was.
There's
very
still a
good.
dark sky spot out by me,
And so
Tavera.
we need to keep it that
Mhm.
way. And I think we're talking about, but I know that people go to Texas and everywhere else for these big astronomy meetings, and we could be another destination. That's another, tourist.
We still do have some dark
Yeah.
skies designated spots in the
Yeah.
county, right? Down the road from me is one, Tavera, which doesn't exist anymore, but we still call it Tavera.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I agree. Again, it's on that same thing. If we really want to encourage people to come here, this is another way that we can be doing that. But how do we go about doing that while people, and I think where we will focus is that people think it's more secure to have, light that shines all the time everywhere from a security standpoint. But then what I was reading is there's actually some data out there that doesn't support that, that says that you can have ones that turn on with motion sensors, and they're just as effective as far as deterring crime and blah, blah, blah. So Steve will bring that back, and we'll have that discussion more in depth next time. I guess you can let me know if you want to bring Scott back at the same time, or if we want to, really just dive into what other municipalities have done first, or what we want to do. And he might even know, so maybe he would be the resource for all of it.
In fact, he's working on an effort surrounding the area around the KBR.
Right.
And they are, if not already, they are very close to getting that
Designation as the dark skies.
Yeah, and so
that's it.
so I'll check with him, but he'd probably be quite willing to come back again.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth pursuing, and we just have to, we'll wait until we get more information to decide like exactly how we would go about. All right, so let's get back to item number 8, which is the 2023 meeting dates. Everyone. All right, got to get back in here. All right. So I think what Mike was trying to do to be helpful to all of us is
That's a good
to
idea.
make sure that we are, able to show up when we need to be here for zoning. This is the first committee I've ever been on where we don't determine our own schedule. So I have to say, it's not as nice as the ones where we can control our own schedule. Because things come up but whatever. So I think, did you have any concerns, or this is just, you just wanted to make sure everybody knows that this is when we need to be available?
Well, I just wanted to make sure everyone kind of, I don't know how many people have seen this before, but as in the yellow highlighted ones, those are not the first Monday of the month.
Right,
They're actually different.
Because we had to change them for,
It was soft last time. Some of us had made appointments, so it's good to.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because we have
then-
Memorial Day, we have Labor Day, we have 4th of July, and we have December County Board being different, that are all throwing things off.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then the blue is the county board days that are not the same as the third Tuesday.
right, the October, right. So that's just for everyone's information, just making sure. And if you could please let me know by email if you cannot make a meeting, or phone call, but if you just make sure you let me know that if you're going to be not going to be able to make a meeting, so that I can make sure we have a quorum, because the last thing we want is our citizens showing up for a zoning meeting and we don't have quorum. So let's just make sure you let me know if you can't make it. Okay, so that brings us to item number 10, approve soil and water cost share contracts.
Okay,
Now it's,
all right.
we did do that dark skies, that was what we were just talking about, yeah.
Steve asked me ahead of time to explain this. We get money, bond money from the state.
Maybe you better get closer to your mic.
We have bond money from the state, and we can do contracts for cost sharing up to 70% with landowners to install conservation practices. And it's been kind of the policy of the board the last few years, the committee, to approve these. And I've got an extra one in here that I got I didn't realize until late today that I did, so I put it in your folder, but it's not in the packet. So it's more of a policy, it's not a requirement. And usually we have more contracts than this, but with not having a technician for 6 plus months.
9 months, long time,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
How is he doing, by the way, as far as, is he allowed to do
he's
projects?
he can design, he's learning how to design things, he's watching a lot of training things, but
It still has to be approved by another person.
it has job approval.
Okay.
And Kelly Neitzel has been working really
And
hard with
that's-
him.
And that's
She's from DAC
DACAP, okay.
You can't call her an engineering technician anymore. They got an environmental technician, I guess as they call them now. She's been working with them and helping him through the process.
Because he has to essentially get certified in order
Correct.
to
And he
be
has to
allowed.
Yeah, he had to design so many practices, and he has to learn he has to be, and she has to prove them. If he gets so many of these done, then he can have job approval. But it's also for design and then construction inspection.
So has he done any of the designs on these and worked with her to do the ones we're approving today?
Prior to design, it was the Tom Troyer one.
Okay.
There's 2 of them are well abandonments.
Okay.
The
And
one.
well abandonments are done by the well people?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, we have 2 the one well abandonment, this Tom Munns is a well abandonment.
Do you want to improve these individually or as a group?
We can do it as a group, I think,
Okay.
but it's 70% cost sharing, and for well abandonments, for those that, we had issues in the past, so we require them, before we do a contract, they have to come with 2 bids. So we cost share on the lowest, 70% of the lowest qualified bid. So if we have 3 contractors bidding on it, and one of the contractors bids the lowest, but he doesn't meet the criteria, we throw that one out. We cost share but say we have 3 bids, 2 of them qualify, we cost share on the lowest bid. So on the wells, say they have Gelenic and they have Advanced Well. Say Advanced Well is the lowest bid, they can go with
Hellenic, but they have to
Hellenic.
pay the difference.
They have to pay the difference.
Right.
So it's a cost containment thing we do for the state.
And those are all DACAP rules. We don't make those rules up.
No, and, but to me, it's a good process, you know. You got two contractors bidding on it, and I want to work with, this contractor A, but contractor B is cheaper. Well, that's fine, but you have to pay the difference.
Right. Okay. So in this case, we've got two people wanting to do well abandoned, which is really good, by the way, just to, because an open abandoned well is a perfect conduit for contamination to get into our drinking water. So anytime we're doing well abandonments, that's a really good thing.
And it's a low cost thing. So, the first one, Tom Munn's is a well abandonment, and the 70% cost sharing is $877.80.
And so it costs like almost $1,300 to abandon a well, 1,200.
Depends how deep it is.
I suppose
We
that's
got
true.
one today that, you know, is like quite a bit more, but it's up on the ridge.
So it had to go further, right?
Yep. So that's the Tom Munn's one. The next one, well, the other well abandonment, which, like I said, I got in the folder but didn't get to help desk in time, is for Gary Epping. And his total was it must have been a deeper well, it was $1,405.78 was the 70% cost sharing. And Tom Troyer is a machinery crossing. It's across a stream. And then they're not digging up the sides of the banks and for
Erosion control.
It's erosion control. So I gotta find and that one is the cost, something got missed here. The cost sharing is actually $2,171.64.
So just to, each year from DATCAP, we, the county, get a pot of money that we can use to do the cost sharing part of this. So farmers and other landowners will come to their department and fill out an application asking for a certain project to be done. And that's when, and I'm assuming it will be Derek deciding, it's usually it used to be Kenny mostly. We'll go through all the projects for the whole county of everyone who's applied and look to see which ones will have the most impact and which ones seem like they would be the best projects. And then that's how we allocate out. What do we get, 50,000 each year as our, for the cost share part?
2022 is 54,500, and this year is 55,000.
So we get 55,000 to cover the cost share part. So in this case, it's DADCAP pays the 21, or the 2171 is what we're paying.
And then we get reimbursed by.
We reimburse, it's out of that
These are
54,000.
all people who have already come through and asked and filled out.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we're following. I wasn't
Yeah.
quite
Yep.
sure I understood
Yep.
that.
These are
And-
ones that,
yeah.
that we've deemed to be, that need to be done and are worth, to have a good conservation practice,
And this is all we're spending this year. We don't, or a little more than this because we didn't have a technician. So
Yeah, the complicating part is what we were talking about. So Derek has to be certified in order to be able to do these projects. So now we're asking DATCAP to come in and do it for us, and their time is limited. So we haven't been able to do all the projects we would have normally done because of that.
Madam
Mhm,
Chair,
Mr. Chair.
question. So normally though, this would be a single pot of money, and when it's gone, and the technician decides who gets it. Is that typically fully subscribed each year, or?
I'm sorry,
In
do
other
we spend it
words-
all? Do we
Yeah.
spend it all
that's
every
what
year?
we've been, I got a thing that said, yeah, we normally spend it all, but
Last year was weird because we didn't have
yeah, we
Kenny.
didn't have a technician, and so when I apply for the grants for this coming year, for the 2024, I've got to put it, there was extenuating circumstances. We didn't spend our bond money because we didn't have anybody in the position and nobody to help us out.
And so that money goes back, or?
No, it doesn't go back. It just sits in Madison
Okay,
and we get for reimbursement.
gotcha.
So do we have 100,000 we can spend right now? Is that what you're saying?
No, not now. We think,
So whatever we didn't spend, we don't get to spend it now. It just stays in Madison and they do whatever they do with it.
correct.
So I'm just confused about what year is what. I mean, normally we would have spent it all in 2022, and we
Correct.
didn't because we didn't have someone. So now these are all for 2023 and the new money?
Well, no, this is all the old, still the 2022 money.
Okay,
And we've got extensions, we request for
Yes.
extensions for it to be spent, but it has to be spent in 2024. We get approval from Department of Ag to spend them in 2024.
23,
I mean, 2023.
23, yeah.
okay.
So essentially, we're carrying over.
But we
Yeah.
can only carry over
Projects.
for 1
And
year.
you can only carry it over for 1 year.
2023.
Right. So the new, no, the ones we have from now on, what Derek will be working with, besides these three, will be
2023 money.
Okay.
Makes sense? It's a little complicated. Everything with DACAP, I feel like, is complicated,
But
but
it sounds like the money from last year does go back. We don't have access to then catch up. with
Well,
it.
we're gonna be able to spend it on these 3 projects, even though
That's
they're gonna
it.
be done this
Yep.
year, and then the rest, we're not gonna, yeah, we just won't have
Right.
access to
Okay,
it.
that's what I meant.
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so that's 2 Wendell abandonments, and then this is the stream crossing.
Yep.
All right, so does anyone have any other questions on the projects? And there'll be more of these coming that we will be doing in 2023. Let's just clean up from
I
22.
understand.
Yeah, okay. I would entertain a motion to approve them then, if someone would be,
I move to approve.
all right,
I'll
motion by
second.
Carol, second by Fleming. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have your approval. All right. That brings us to item 11, County Surveyor Contract 2324. So that's
Mhm.
in our folders.
So every 2 years, we have to sign a contract with the county surveyor. For the past 8 years, it's been, driftless area surveying. Rummer doing it. So basically, everything's exactly the same as past resolutions, except change the dates, years.
So we don't ever go out and ask for other
We
surveyors
tried
to,
that once and no one applied.
no one applied? Do we think after 8 years, I mean, do we think that that matters, that we haven't asked anyone? Mr. Carroll, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I think it matters. Let's put it this way. Even if we don't expect anyone else to bid, we should still put it out there and show that we've tried. So I would as a
So
minimum
even
say
if
that.
even if nobody applies, then
Exactly. And so
Then it
I
makes
would,
it a no-brainer.
I think we need to do that.
what would that entail? Putting it in the paper?
Yep, just like in,
Any other requests for
Anything.
bids, I guess it would be?
we can go ahead and do that. Like I said, we've done in the.
How much does it cost to do that?
Looking to do like just a week posting in the papers kind of a thing,
How
probably on
much-
the website as a.
Website and then 1 week in the paper?
solicitation For services.
Mr. Carroll, how long do you think?
I
2
was
weeks?
just curious what our procurement policy says about that.
What does our procurement policy say? I don't know. Off the top of my head, it's changed.
So it'd be,
When we changed the language this last time, did we change that to say
should be
don't-
considered, it's.
it's a service,
unique.
right?
It's a contract for. service.
Professional services, isn't that where it's, that gets gray?
I'll pull up the language here to read verbatim. The other part of it is it's the surveyor, so there's kind of also an element of appointment by the administrator.
Oh, so is this your job? Not ours?
Well, it's contract still has to be approved because the money's from you folks, so we
Oh,
have
okay.
contract language, but because it's not an employee, we're kind of contracting them, kind of like we do with the corporation council aspect. There's still
Okay.
an appointment
So
type
is-
of a component to it.
For seeking out other. I mean, if you've decided this is who you want, do we have the right to tell you that this is not who you want?
Always by a majority vote at a county board, certainly do. Contracts, agreements entered into on behalf of the Richland County should be reduced to right whenever possible. All contracts involving expenditures of $10,000 or more a year must be approved by the county board, except when a 1 year's extension of an existing contract may be authorized by an appropriate committee. All contracts involving less than $10,000 a year must be approved by the county administrator. Department heads may enter into a contract on behalf of the Richland County, subject to the county administrator approval. Department heads will report all contracts to appropriate committees. Copies of all contracts shall be filed
Okay, but this
with-
contract would be more than $10,000, correct? No, it's less than 10,000?
His budget salary, I don't think is over $7,000. I think it's only $5,000. His whole budget, that's all.
It's $5,000? So read the language about less than $10,000 again?
Less than $10,000 can be, all contracts involving less than 10,000 a year must be approved by the county administrator. Department heads may enter into contracts on behalf of Richland County, subject to the county administrator approval.
Okay, so to me, that language sounds like it's up to Clint.
That's fine.
So do you want it to be advertised, or are you satisfied with the how well, I mean, we've worked with this person for 8 years.
My experiences with Todd is he's been pretty good to us in helping us out through many clumpy types of situations. So I respect his service, and as a contributor, at the same time, it's something that you want to do, something we certainly can do, probably with everything that we also, all the irons we have in the fire at the time. I think maybe it'd be appropriate to look into it after the end of this contract, if it's,
Okay, so to make a note for next time before we approve a contract, that we would want to make sure.
that would be my recommendation on the spot, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that with Supervisor
I
Carroll?
am. I'm just glad that we kind of talked through.
Right, I think at least understanding the whole
Yeah.
process and knowing what our role is and where
Yep.
I always want to make sure we're not overstepping on your,
It is, but I mean, at the same time, I think, this is a surveyor type position that is setting the benchmark. So, I mean, this is the person we're having help do our intimate projects that get first stab. And then they also kind of, with section corners, I think they also are kind of the lead element in helping us establish section corners. Is that appropriate to say?
Right.
So it's a pretty big deal. So I certainly don't want to be a maverick out there telling you who's going to be doing these sections that set the.
that don't understand or know.
for
Okay,
entire
all right, I'm
years.
satisfied then. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this to send it to county board then?
I just want to make sure everyone is understanding and everything also, because I believe, like I mentioned, his salary for the whole year is $3,500. So he does not come close to that. But what it is he's contracted to be 2 hours a month for office hours in the county. $70 it was in the past. This contract here, they're bumping up to $85 an hour, which is still a lot less than what they usually charge per hour.
Okay,
So that's the other part of it too, is if we're going to send it out for,
we're getting actually a really good deal.
you might be looking at someone else that might be doing $120 an hour.
Well, I mean, then they wouldn't get the contract, so.
But the other part of it too is that $85 per their hours of usual work per month, and then extra also, it still is less than going beyond that. So
Okay,
I feel comfortable with the $85 an hour.
okay. All right. I mean, given how, I also feel like the zoning department has kind of been getting hit hard with changes and personnel. And so having continuity in our surveyor at this point, I think is not a bad thing.
And when I started here in 2011, it was $70 back there. So over 10 years, it's been the same.
On
So
$15. Okay, motion by Gentis,
I'll second it.
second by Fleming. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, send it on to county board. All right, item number 12, filling the 7th committee member slots. So I will just give you a brief discussion. So many counties, so this is the FSA. So in chapter 92, which talks about the Land Conservation Committee and its makeup, it states that there will be a representative from FSA, which is Farm Service Agency, on the Land Conservation Committee. The reason for this, I think the spirit of the language is that they want to make sure there's farmer representation on the Land Conservation Committee. The problem happened about a year and a half ago. FSA said, we are not comfortable with our representatives being at the Land Conservation Committees as an FSA representative. We are okay with them being there as a person that lives in the county, as a person, a citizen, but we are not okay with them saying that they are representing FSA in that room. Unfortunately, the statute still says that FSA representative needs to be on the committee. So some counties are ignoring it. Some counties are still having their FSA reps there, and they're just, They have made clear that the FSA rep is allowed, just because you're on an FSA member does not mean that you can't go to an LCC meetings. It just means when you're there, you do not pretend that you're representing FSA. You're there
You're a
as
farmer rep.
you're a farmer rep as a private citizen. Some counties have changed their language to remove that from that member from the committee, but it still says in Chapter 92 that the Land Conservation Committee membership must include an FSA rep. So it's kind of gone round and round and round. Land and Water Association has now decided that they are going to go to the legislature and ask them to change just that one little line in the statute, because they're a little bit afraid of opening up the statute, because there's a lot of protections in there about how much staff funding that they get and they don't want they don't want the legislator to have a door in to just totally muck with the entire statute. Which I really think, as land conservation members, if you haven't read through Chapter 92, you really should. It really defines exactly what our reason for being is and what our responsibilities are. And one of the things I will point out is that it's the committee's responsibility to make sure that conservation practices are done in the county. We can use our staff to get that done, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with this committee. We are the ones that are responsible for making sure that we are, that we are doing conservation practices and that we are working to make sure that they are implemented and utilized and whatever. So I do encourage you to read Chapter 92. It's not that long. It's really not that hard to get through. Like some other statutes are awful, but this one's not too bad. And I think it would actually help you understand our responsibilities on this committee. So the conundrum is, nobody really knows if it was a new director. Do you know why?
No. What happened, what I was told was a Farm Service Agency rep, the chair from the Farm Service Agency Committee in one of the counties came to the meeting and stated that as an Farm Service Agency rep, he was saying
things that FSA didn't agree with?
correct.
There you go. So somebody overstepped their bounds and pissed FSA off, essentially. Sorry.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So FSA got worried that yeah. So we actually should probably bring this to Corp Council. My thought is we ask an FSA rep to come and specifically ask that they represent themselves as a private citizen.
Correct.
That would be my suggestion. That way we are meeting the letter of the law. And I think the spirit of the law, which is right now, I guess I'm probably the closest thing to a farmer. Are you a farmer? You farm?
No.
Do you?
Yeah.
But not in Wisconsin. How come? So
Well, I did own 498.
Yeah.
I run out in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes. So they would be a voting member of this committee for land conservation issues. Correct. They
That's
have to
what-
have voting power, but only on land conservation. I think that's how we made the new committee structure, was that they would not have zoning. They would not vote on zoning issues, but I can check that. Just because I know we made that for like the veterans and HHS positions, right, Clint? Yeah.
How does that affect a quorum then? When it comes to zoning stuff, that's not quorum.
I know, it gets really complicated. I mean, we could let them vote on zoning stuff. They're a citizen member of, they're a citizen of Richland County, and maybe it would be good to have citizen input, maybe,
HHS has,
citizen members.
don't all vote on
Okay, so we have Land and Zoning Committee, 7 members, 6 of whom shall be county board supervisors, and 1 of whom shall be your Farm Service FSA Committee Chair or other FSA
Or
Committee member
designee.
designee.
Mhm.
And monitors, and that does that. Acts as the Land Conservation Committee as follows. Is that no, acts as the zoning committee as follows. So then you have your two different breakdowns of what the two functions
Did we
are.
specifically say whether the FSA rep would vote on zoning matters? I mean, it would be nice to have 7 of us instead of 6. In theory, we can have a tie. It would give us a little more breathing room as far as if somebody can't make it to a meeting, because right now we have to have 4. Well, we'd have to have 4 anyway, but at least that would give 3 people an out instead of 2. Do you have any names of someone you think who would be willing? Who's the current FSA? Is it still Greg Kinney? It was Greg. I mean, it used to be John, and then it was Greg. Yeah, and that was a mess too. They had farm service agencies had some issues for sure. No, yeah. I mean, I guess my recommendation right now would be, let's see if we can find someone who is FSA who would be interested. And it really, it would simply be, because I've seen several emails from FSA with them stating that they are okay with their members attending meetings and participating in meetings as long as it is clear that they are not representing FSA. They're a citizen member that happens to be an FSA member. Okay. So I think that we'll just see if we can find someone first of all. And if we can't, then we need to talk about probably with Corp Counsel about what his thoughts are on reading this. I mean, the statute's really clear. It says the committee will be made up of county board supervisors and 1 FSA rep.
Per Code of Federal Regulations number, the designee from FSA is prohibited. But I
Right.
think that your approach on it would be fine. We want Corporation Counsel to take a look at it when he comes back off.
Yeah, and so the question is if Land in Wisconsin, Land in Water becomes successful in removing the FSA language from the statute, then what do we want to do to ensure we have, do you feel like you're a farmer rep? Yeah, I mean, we have a large, technically we're a farmer. I don't feel like I'm a farmer though. It used to be I was a dairy farmer.
I mean, you could put it as could have language that you have these positions and it would say designee from FSA is prohibited. If the position is deferred by FSA membership, then we'll have a member of the farming community at large.
Like a farmer. But then it becomes then it gets into the nitpicky of what qualifies as a farmer. And I think we do need to make sure, because someone was saying like, well, if you're just a hobby farmer, you're not a farmer. It's like, well, I don't know, you're kind of a farmer, you know, I mean, you're producing income off your land.
Well, how about a member of the community representing farm interests?
Right. I think so why don't we find out, I think the simplest thing is to see if we can get an FSA member to come as a citizen. And then we'll see what happens with the Wisconsin Land and Water Association and the legislature to see if they change that language, and then we'll have to just deal with it from there. If that sounds reasonable. But it does seem like we should try to fill that 7th. That 7th seat.
Ask Corp Counsel if they could vote or not, or could they abstain? Because that'd be another option,
Right.
just abstain, but you
As far as
still
the
have four
zoning
people
or
as a quorum, just one abstains and there would be a tie vote.
You could, I'm not sure why, I mean, it would be up to you folks on whether you wanted to give them one voting authority. I guess I shouldn't, it would be the county board's final decision on
rules would have
adopting
to,
it,
we'd probably have to define whether they can vote on,
giving them authority or not.
yeah.
Madam Chair,
Right. Yeah.
I filed a Form F and we have 20 chickens, so.
I mean, that's what I'm saying though, is I do think that in our committee structure, we may want to define what we're looking for a citizen rep, just so that we don't have any issues with.
What are you zoned?
Yeah, you don't get yourself in trouble. How are you zoned?
Well, and I don't think it's something completely foreign to us with our different advisory bodies that we have with Health and Human Services. You often have folks that are wearing a hat of representing a demographic.
Right. And do you know in HHS, do they vote on veteran stuff? And do the veterans, citizen members vote on HHS stuff?
Believe so. Let me double check here. There might be limitations here.
It doesn't? You've been sitting, you probably sit through those meetings, don't you? You would know. Okay, well, so you come back next time. We'll put this on the agenda again and let us know what you find out about and the potential of an FSA rep. All right, so item number 13, GIS sanitation position contract. Like, I guess this is Clint maybe. Is this Clint?
I want to say the last part that we left off on this was that mean that.
We were trying to get an RFP together and figure out what is supposed to be on it.
And you were going to have
Yeah,
IT department come up with the full definition or job description for GIS.
correct. So Clint, can you tell us where that's at?
Last conversations we had was trying to coordinate on what all that's going to look like and not knowing what the pieces are. I've reached out to multiple other counties on their solutions, including Sauk County.
Yep.
They came back and they're configured a different way. How they operate their GIS is really not with the GIS understanding what the use is, say, for how it goes and impacts sheriff's office and how it goes and impacts property lister. They're really kind of acting as kind of like a help desk type of a thing where work orders come into them and they get the information out to them the way that they need it. And those autonomous departments are then managing that data in the way to which they request it.
So the
So-
GIS is its own thing, and each department has stuff that goes back out to the department.
Yeah, they're asking them for
Wow.
the information that they need in
That's Sauk County.
certain ways, yep. And it goes out to them. So in trying to figure out from our end what's happening in each department and expecting like one position or to kind of know in depth everything that's happening into all those departments is where we're getting kind of stuck because not one person knows all those pieces from each element. So
Okay.
again, if it's something that wants to be figured out and solved, then like building it
Well,
actually into
so
the,
here's what we're trying to do. I mean, what we need is we need an RFP written that we can send out to whoever we think is going to do this work for the next year or two. And we can't write an RFP if we don't even know what we need, is where we were at as a committee.
I would say in the RFP, based on the conversations we had, would be to help understand and provide data in formattings to meet department needs as requested, kind of an element and kind
So
of.
we
scope.
already got we got two responses back to I mean, I'm sure you've seen that Lynn sent an email to both Southwest Regional Planning Commission and, well, she sent it to MSA, is it MSA?
Lynn sent it to MSA, I sent it.
And then he sent it to Southwest Regional Planning, and then they came and presented to us their proposals. In the process of talking with them, we kind of came up with more questions, like, because they were asking us, well, how do you do this? And where is your data stored? And where is this done? And nobody seemed to know. And so that's why we thought that we really needed to answer some of these questions. But what you're saying is you think we need to just hire someone to come in and then they'll figure it out and tell us what we need? Is that essentially what you're saying?
That's kind of where I'm going with it versus,
Anybody quote for an unknown? I mean, it's so unknown, there's no way they could quote and knowing how much time is gonna be involved.
Well, the two vendors that were here certainly seem to know what we didn't know. Like, they seem to know what questions we need answered. But I don't know.
when a contract's put forward, it's not terribly, I mean, you're going to have change orders and different elements that are not covered in it. So an agreement would be, we're providing these types of things, additional services and hours for these types of projects, then would cost X, Y, Z.
So what's happening now? We have a short-term contract with MSA and they're providing our GIS at the moment. Is that correct?
Correct, currently, but it expired December 31st, was the contract that we had currently. There's extension on the, right now, due to the fact that there is ward information and all this has to go to state by January 18th. They're doing that right now also.
Okay. Okay, so,
Madam Chair,
yes.
but they're only doing zoning piece, sheriff's department piece, or what other pieces, right? They're only just doing what's needed for zoning and sanitation?
The contract that was kind of, what was sent out before, that MSA and Southwest Regional Planning bid on, is the same thing that they're doing right now. So there's 4 different tasks that they were listed to do.
And that did
Those-
include everything then.
So that's what they're still
Did.
doing right now, just that, right. So I mean, there's parts of it, but the other part of it too, I think would have to say is that, like the sheriff's department, I don't know how much they go into that, but what we used to do in our office, they're doing, taken care of. So the address comes in, we send it, in-house to Crossroads, or all the other agencies that gets information from. That's the part that we don't know is who's all touching it. Usually
So
there's like 4
so does
different-
our MIS people, when it has to go to the sheriff's department for the 911, is it Jason and Barb and you that take
Sean,
care
why
of
don't
that?
you tell?
Nothing to do with JS, but do Jason and Barb? Jason does some? Okay. Okay, so so are we back at just deciding between the 2 bidders that we had? Is that what we're saying here?
That's where I'm at. If you want to add those elements again to like an RFP thing of looking also for you to help us understand where all the pieces are and make recommendation for future storage and touching all those things. But it's going to be quite an onion to kind of further unravel. Like I said, it kind of works as more of a help desk where those elements of address changes and what gets put on the overlays and all those types of elements are kind of requested from a sheriff or from a property lister or from the elements that go off onto the website, and it comes into please make these overlays look like this.
So are we still advertising the GIS position anywhere?
No, we took that off because we didn't know for sure what's going on with the contract. We're going the contract way, so we took it all off.
So I realize that this is complicated and it's hard to know, but it seems like we're sort of pushing it down the road. If there's another committee in 2 years and they have to deal with this and we're not dealing, how are they gonna know what the criteria are? I mean, it seems like we have to have some sort of criteria, and maybe I'm just.
Yeah, so Clint,
It's impossible, I don't know.
I didn't, in the email from Lynn that we essentially used as an RFP, it was just an email. I didn't see anything in there where it talked about, figuring out the exact process of when any change is made, what happens from start to finish, what all just is touched by a change. I mean, I didn't see any language about doing that. So it seems like we should at least include in that language that we are going to want them to figure out. I mean, I'm still struggling with why we don't know this.
Madam Chair, do we know if Lynn would be willing or able to do like a short-term consult as
Yeah.
a way to transition a contractor into that position?
My understanding is that she's not wanting to do that. We asked. She was not.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, should we, I hate to ask the vendors to come back, but I feel like we're asking for quite a bit more than what that simple email from. I almost feel like I need to watch that whole presentation again.
So, Mike, you don't know the whole concept or can't put it together because you didn't do it? I'm confused.
There's parts of it that our office did. We issued the address and we sent it out to certain spots. Someone else took it and sent it to other spots. But evidently, we don't know.
Who's the someone else?
Right.
You mean like
We don't know
like
how it gets from.
MIS?
Send it to the dispatcher screen. Because there's, I don't know, John can even help me even more on this, but it's like MSA, Spillman, and all these other,
Yeah, the sheriff's
we don't
department
know
does
who all
have
touches
several
it.
different,
we just,
the Insight, MSEG.
Lynn only sent it to Crossroads, but there is 4 more agencies that we send information to.
Like the treasurer or like what do you mean by agency?
Is Spillman one of them? Settler?
And Spillman is our mapping, correct? for 911
Sounds like that might change.
with the
It's
new,
not-
with the
it's
new
not-
dispatch consoles?
It's nothing that I.
Yeah, I mean, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I feel like, I feel like I don't understand why we can't, how to go about this. Like, how do we get, I want a user manual, you know, like that will like explain from start to finish, everyone who has to touch and who's,
Well-
and how do we make sure that it's getting done right with all this? That's a little bit scary to me.
How about another county? Is there-
Well, that's what we tried with Sauk County, but they do things so differently. I don't know if we could try to find one that does some, I mean, I don't even know how we would figure out who does it in a way that's similar enough so that it would be helpful. Unless we want to change the way we do it, but then that's a whole new can of worms. Although now we are changing. If we're going to do it by contract, outside contractor, I guess now would be the time to make a change if we want to track their approach of, but if we're contracting, how could you have that be your central location when they're not even a county entity? They're just here when we need them. Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, as I recall from the presentations, they felt that working remote majority of the time was still going to be feasible. But regardless of that, I'm starting to think we may have to just award the contract and let them hack into all
And help us
the
figure this out.
undergrowth and ask the questions. And each of those questions they'll ask us will then help us know what information we got to chase down. 'Cause otherwise, we're just going to spin our wheels.
Yeah. So are we saying that we would, so what do we need to be comfortable in, because we have two bids already. I mean, they've already sent us all of their information. Can we, so the temporary contract with MSA is just through, did you extend it? You can extend a contract without, so did you extend it so that it goes through whatever date he said? Can we extend it through the end of January? No, to mid-February? So that we could, at our next meeting, review, that'll give us time to go back and watch their presentations, to read their contracts, and then we can make a decision at the next meeting?
I think we can do another temporary contract with them, like we did before. Just to
Would
keep
as-
them going on with the process, because
I would assume.
Yeah.
what happens, we got in that crunch and we had to get someone.
I know, no,
switched.
and we still need continuity for them to keep going. So I would say that the next contract would be at least to mid-February until our next meeting, which was whatever date we just said, February 7th or something. 6th, yeah. So let's do that. Let's extend the contract with MSA to continue doing what we need done. And then committee members, I need you to rewatch that meeting where we listened to both and reread the contracts from both parties so that we are ready to make a determination. And then also let me know ahead of time if you feel there's any need to have them come back to answer more questions, or this will be the February meeting.
No, I mean, if we go back and look at those.
Oh, it was
September 29th.
September. I think
so
it was,
Go back to our.
just go back to, I mean, go online, go to the administrator's website and go to the videos and watch the vendor presentations. And then definitely let me know well ahead of time if you think there's any possibility you want to see them back in the room. I guess I could extend the invitation to them to attend remotely, to answer more questions if we wanted to at the next meeting. Does that seem reasonable? I mean, I wouldn't mind, I mean, maybe I will send them a message just saying that we think that an additional duty, which both of them are saying they would charge us hourly. So if we add duties, it would be, it wouldn't change things too much as far, but it would just, when they work on any additional stuff, that would be, we would pay for it then. But I can let them know that we really want them to dig in and get us, essentially, I think what we want is a user manual that tells us exactly how, step by step, what happens when a change is made and who all has to touch it and who has to make sure it's done properly. At this point, it's confusing to me as to how we make sure there's no mistakes. And I think that has been a concern. So, okay. Does that seem reasonable? So you got homework, quite a bit of homework for next time. It's going to be busy. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that brings us to 14, zoning office system technician position. So I don't know if all of you saw the email, but we're now down one more person in the zoning. When is the last day of that, of Jackie?
Friday.
This Friday? So you'll be an office of one?
Well, I mean, what it is that, yeah, we're office of one. We kind of discussed with the treasurer's office, she's taking a job as a deputy treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, she's kind of also working in the treasurer's office to learn the job before the last day of the treasurer deputy, which is tomorrow. So she's only had a couple of days of training, but I think we kind of agreed that it's best to get some training knowledge before the person leaves and go.
And so then she'll cover your office for a little bit longer after she switches over?
Right, so the idea if we
Reciprocate?
get a new person, then she can kind of help train the new person.
Okay.
So we switch.
So what you need from us is permission to advertise, correct? Or what do you need from us?
Well, part of that also is where do we want to go? I mean, I'm kind of thinking maybe the pouch person's what we need more than anything is someone that can do sanitation.
Right, someone who's already got that certification
Right,
would be the most helpful.
because of like right now, if I go on vacation, there's no one in
There's
the
no one,
office.
right, okay. So, and would that change the job? Because normally we would advertise it as you could get your certification after you're hired.
Oh, well, there's two parts of this. Now there's a GIS/sanitation person or the office technician person. And maybe what we need to start looking at in the whole picture is just creating a
That
sanitation.
position, that's just the sanitation.
Right.
And then the office, but have some office duties on the description.
Right. Say like a
Answering the phone.
assistant zoning
Yeah.
administrator
Slash sanitation.
that can do land permits and all that stuff. Just someone that's just not answering the phone.
So we really kind of need to rewrite a description, but that's something that you guys would take care of.
Well-
And what you need from us is just permission to go ahead and advertise once you have that written.
Start, if that's the way to go or not. I mean, we're
Right.
looking at a whole new office restructuring, so kind of time to might start doing it.
So with what we've committed to cutting Tammy's position back. But keeping the other positions, and then GIS is sort of questionable whether it'll be contract or a body in the office. What I'm hearing from you is you think the recommendation should be that we should have a position instead. So her current title is office system technician. Okay, and it sounds like, so do we have to go through? Do we have to go through their names? The people that do our
Carson
wage study?
do a wage study.
We'd recreate, we update the job description. We'd also submit then a position description form change that they have a
So that,
templated form.
and then they can set the wage.
They would assess it then, yes, to put it on.
How, is this gonna take too long though? I mean, we
Typically,
got an office of one here.
it's been about a 2-week process.
Oh, that's all?
right now.
Would that have to come back through us, or can that,
If you want to give authorization to approve on it pending Carlson Detman's decision and forward to finance and personnel, because it would be a change to our authorization compensation policy, which they would have the ability then to control.
Creating a new job.
Well, to
it's eliminating
reclassify-
one, it's reclassifying, yeah.
reclassify an existing position.
So does anyone have any concerns? I'm just trying to be efficient in being able to fill the position as soon as
I
possible,
think it's good that we're reclassifying it.
to make it,
Yeah, and I would go ahead and,
I mean, I assume that you will still include some office duties in the description. It's just that you'll change the focus so that the requirements of the job, they should be certified for POTUS and a sanitation specialist or whatever seems
Yes, it's no longer kind of an entry type of level position. You're looking
right.
for
You
some
actually have some requirements and
certified
training
level.
and background, yeah, and experience. Okay. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve that process? So that would be creating a job description that includes the sanitation requirements, sending it to Carlson Detman for a wage analysis and classification.
I would move.
Are you,
I'll second with discussion.
okay, go ahead.
do we need to approve that, or is that just something they would simply go ahead and do because it needs to be done?
I don't
does it need
know.
Our approval.
We can do it. The authorization is through leadership and management to touch position descriptions and touch those and to submit off to Carlson Detman. When it gets to like to actual reclassify somebody and change what their pay grade is, that's a policy change.
That's
So
fine.
you're
That's
essentially-
finance and,
Yeah, you're kind of making a recommendation to finance and personnel is what it's
Gotcha.
falling
Okay.
into.
okay. So is that clear? What we're doing?
When I get these minutes done, I'll make sure I send it to you.
Send to
make
me,
sure
that's
it's
fine.
clear.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we are authorizing you guys to create potentially a new position, depending on what Carlson Detman says.
Reclassify
Reclassification.
existing position would be.
Yeah. Okay, that's what the motion is. Okay? All right, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So hopefully we can get moving on that right away so that we can take a little pressure off that office. All right, that brings us to public comment. Look like there's any public online or in the room. So that brings us to future agenda items. Yeah, but I actually going to add some. Well, I think that we should talk about well testing and the potential of us not paying for, but at least coordinating a testing event. So I'd like to talk about that. And then we should just talk a little bit about the 2022 land and water plan as far as where we want it, as far as website and things like that. So let's talk about that next time. And just do a brief discussion as to how it went when we went to Madison to present it. So we can't talk about because it's not on our agenda. So, okay, so that brings us to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Performance evaluations of the zoning administrator and county conservationist. So we will be closing this now, and I will ask that all parties that are not on the committee leave. So you guys, we're not actually doing your reviews. We're talking with Clint about your reviews. I will take notes, and I will get. And so, I mean, I don't think this is going to take very long. So if you guys want to just hang out, we'll
We can hang out together, we can still. get along.
actually, if there's nothing, you don't have to. If you guys want to leave, you can. I think right, because we're going to just talk to you about, because you're the one that does the reviews with them. Yeah. We don't have other business, so we'll, yeah. So you guys can go ahead and go then. And Supervisor Turk, I think, can we,
I locked the meeting.
you lock the meeting so we can just leave it?
But just in case they're sure nobody else, somebody.
Okay. And it's not recording anymore, correct?